kick us off and introduce and start with saying welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm so glad that you're here with us. This time with Dom and his team is truly a special treat. I met Dom last year just as the PX community was getting started, and I was immediately intrigued by what he's created with Xploro. And so I asked him to be our very first vendor feature last year, and I'm grateful that he said yes. And what it turned out was Dom was our guinea pig. And since there, I have learned a lot about how to do LinkedIn events and get the word properly out. And so I'm looking forward to doing this a redo with Dom this year, because in the process during that event last year, those who were in attendance, myself included, very often said, "Oh, how cool," as he showed us different elements of Xploro. And we had a genuine appreciation for the thoughtfulness and creativity that's been integrated into this tool. And so this is a do-over. We get to have Dom come back and show it to us again. And in the meantime, Xploro has done a lot in that year since. And so I'm looking forward to seeing new features and hearing about what's coming up with Xploro in the future. I know that growth within the States has been significant. So that's wonderful. So we'll have plenty of time following Dom's presentation for Q&A and discussion, but I would guess that he would likely also be open to a question during the presentation if there's something that you just really want to know in the moment when he's on a certain feature during the demonstration. So go ahead and unmute and ask your questions or put it in the chat and I'll ask it for you. At the top of the hour, we're going to transition to speed networking. So I hope you'll stay for the additional 30 minutes and get to know some of the others that are on the call with you today. But for now, the next 50 some minutes, we're going to spend with Dom. And it is a pleasure to hand this over to Dom. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thanks, Denise, for that wonderful introduction, and hello, everyone. Great to be here this morning, afternoon, lunchtime, whatever time it is for you guys. I'm gonna kind of split this in two. So I'm going to start with just walking you through just a very few slides to give you an introduction to the Xploro platform, and then I'm going to swap screens and go into a demo of Xploro. So I'll start by sharing some slides, and just bear with me a second. So you should all be able to see my screen there. So Xploro, as some of you may or may not know, comes about through personal experience. So about 12, 13 years ago, my daughter, who was age 13 at the time, was diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma. She's 10 years cancer-free, actually 11 years cancer-free now, and doing great. So just putting that out there. But she went through a pretty intensive year of treatment, as I'm sure you can imagine. She was treated at 6 different hospitals in total, both here in the UK and in the United States. She had numerous rounds of chemotherapy, the works, basically. But she had no information about that treatment. So no prior information about the people that were going to treat her, no prior information about the environment she was going to go into, and no prior information about any of the technologies that were going to be used in her treatment. And whenever there was any information, it was delivered
recording in progress,
consultant to parent, rather than consultant to my 13-year-old daughter, who was perfectly capable of processing information about her own health condition. So when she got better, I started thinking about what I could do to improve the experience for other children going through a similar kind of thing. And I realized, this lack of information was having an impact on her mental health. So it increased her anxiety. That increase in anxiety made her more resistant to treatments. It also coincidentally made her more difficult to treat because she was anxious. It's in the long term, it's had an effect on her attitude towards health services and her ability to integrate with health services. And so I got very interested in the idea of information in and of itself as a bona fide therapy, and started thinking about the power of information in terms of reducing anxiety and improving long-term clinical outcomes. That led to, sorry, I'm just going to advance the screen. I'm going to jump through that slide. So that led to the development of Xploro. And before we get into the demo, I just want to point out a few key points. So the first is the age range that we're targeting. So our core age range is 7 to 14-year-olds. Anecdotally, we've had very positive responses from both younger children and older children. And we've actually got a research study going on at the moment in Spain at a hospital in Barcelona called Hospital Sant Joan de Déu, where they're looking at responses to Xploro from 3 age cohorts, so 3 to 6-year-olds, where it's largely a facilitated experience with a parent involved, 7 to 12-year-olds, and 13 to 18-year-olds. And so we're hoping that that study will show a broader applicability, but core age range, 7 to 14-year-olds. I also want to point out that we've used a human-centered design process in everything we do. So we involve parents, patients, and clinicians at every stage of the development process, getting feedback from them. But it's also important that we walk in the shoes of the end user. So this slide here that you can see is one of our developers having a radiation therapy mask fitted so that he can understand what that feels like, and he's therefore better positioned to be able to develop content that responds to the experiences that a child would have when they're going through that process. And our human-centered design approach led in 2018 to the formation of our expert advisory board. Our expert advisory board is an amazing group of children. The youngest is 8, the oldest is 16, and they basically vet everything that we do. They tell us when we're doing things right, and they definitely tell us when we're doing things wrong. So they're key members of our team. And those 3 girls there are 3 members of the group. The other thing I want to point out is that it's really important to realise that Xploro is designed to be accessed through the patient's own device. And the reason for that is because we want to start reducing anxiety before a child comes into hospital, not at the point of a procedure when they're already in an extremely anxious state. So it's very important that the child can access Xploro at home on their own device, start reducing their anxiety, and then they can bring their device into hospital with them. So the other key thing I want to point out is that we're not about distraction, we're about education. So often people confuse us with interventions which are about distraction, which tends to be delivered at the point of a procedure. We're very much about educating a child prior to that procedure. Okay, so just before I get into the demo, so does Xploro work? Well, we did a clinical study here in the UK with 80 children, 40 with access to standard healthcare information and 40 with access to Xploro. And what that study found was that children using Xploro, the Xploro cohort, demonstrated a statistically significant reduction in procedural anxiety, as well as statistically significant increases in both knowledge about procedures and patient satisfaction. And that study is published in the Journal of Medical Internet Research. We've got a couple of other studies going on at the moment, and I can see Angela from Boston Children's is here. We've got a quality improvement study at Boston Children's, which is looking at whether there are procedural efficiencies in radiology as a result of children having access to Xploro. And then at OHSU Dornbecker in Portland, Oregon, we've got a 6-month randomized study underway where they're aiming to show a reduction in pre-procedural sedation. So, just before I get into the demo, I just want to share with you a quote from a parent, which we received a few months ago. She's the parent of a 12-year-old boy being treated for osteosarcoma. And I'm not going to read out the whole quote, but I'm just going to highlight one section where she says, the very next day in his 4th round of chemo, he shared with his nurse that he finally gets what the medicine is doing to his body thanks to a game he played on the app the night before. It was amazing. He was encouraged. And for the first time in months, there was a lightness about him. I'm going to show you that game when we go through the demo, but I think it was an incredible moment for us when we got that message, and it really just validated everything we're trying to do. So I'm going to stop sharing the presentation and share my iPad screen now. So hopefully that's changed smoothly to my iPad screen, and just bring it back to life. There we go. So I'm going to tap the Xploro icon and just pick up the iPad. So the first thing we do is choose a language. So we're currently available in UK and US English, in Castilian and Latin American Spanish, and there's a special prize at the end for anyone who knows what Chichewa is. It's actually the language spoken in Malawi. We have a partnership with a charity called World Child Cancer, and we've made Xploro freely available to children in low and middle income countries. And we're currently live in Ghana, the Cameroon, and in Malawi. And so we have a Chichewa version, but I'm not going to show you it in Chichewa today. I'll show you it in US English, and tap continue. So now we need a code to access the app. So what happens here is a subscribing organization, typically a hospital, but not always, a subscribing organization will have an organization code that they communicate to parents. And then the parent uses that organization code to create a parental account, web-based parental account. They're taken through some reassurances about how their child's data is being used and how all of the content's been co-created with physicians. And then they're sent a unique three-word code, unique to them. And in this case, the code is, just bear with me a second, SQHDLB. Okay, so if I tap continue now, we're into Xploro, and I'll tap get started. So you can see a present bouncing around on my screen. If I tap that present, out pops an avatar, and the whole premise of Xploro is that the child creates and customizes an avatar that then becomes their guide through their healthcare journey. So if I tap the forward arrow, it says I'm here to show you around Xploro, and the first thing we're going to do is customize the look of the avatar. So what I'm going to do here is just make the avatar my own. I'll change the skin color. I'm going to put some hair on. I'm a big fan of glasses, so we'll have some nice glasses. I'm going to put some clothes on as well, would be a good idea. So there's my avatar. You can also see bottom left of the screen, there's a plus sign. If I tap the plus sign, I can add a few other things to the avatar. So I can have my avatar sat in a wheelchair. Something we're working on at the moment is enabling prosthetic limbs, so that you can have an avatar with limb loss. Various other things you can have. We've got an anesthesia mask, surgeon's mask. I'm going to go with a stethoscope and tap done. So there's my avatar. Now we're going to give it a name. Now we use the avatar in multiplayer gaming, so there's no opportunity for free text entry here. So what the child does is they'll choose from a list of first names and second names. I'm just going to find one I like. I'll go with Bobby Poppycock. Bit of a mouthful, but Bobby Poppycock. And I'm going to regret calling it Bobby Poppycock because I can hardly say it. So it says it's time for me to enter your world. So I'll tap the forward arrow. I'm just getting a little warning up on the screen. Now if I tap the forward arrow again, you'll see that my camera's been activated, and you can see my desk there. In a second, a balloon's going to appear. When that balloon turns green, I'm going to tap it, and there's my avatar, and I'm just going to move him around, and he's getting a bit dizzy. I'll make him bigger and smaller, and this is just about making the avatar feel real to the child. So if I tap the green balloon now, there's my avatar having a little dance. There's a couple of things I'm going to point out on the home screen before we move on. Whenever you see this red balloon top right as I go through the demo, it means that whatever we're looking at, you can see in augmented reality. So if I was to tap it now, a door pops up, and out goes my avatar into the real world, and I can bring him back just by tapping the balloon again. So as you see content through Xploro, I'm not going to demo that every time, but when you see the red balloon, it just means that you can see something in augmented reality. The other thing that you'll see persistently through the app is my avatar bottom left of the screen in a speech bubble, and at any point I can ask my avatar a question. So if I was to say something like, will my operation hurt? It understands my phonetic spelling and gives me an answer. So if I was to say something else like, am I going to die? It recognizes that that's the kind of question that no chatbot should attempt to answer, and so it's referring me to an adult. Now, all of this written content can be spoken. You just turn text to speech on. I'm not going to do that because it's difficult to talk over the speech, but it can be spoken. So the child doesn't need any reading ability at all. Okay, so I'm going to go to the menu. Excuse me. And I'm going to start with the picture of a physician at 11 o'clock on the dial, and then we're going to work anti-clockwise. So if I tap the physician, here we explain all the staff roles that you're likely to encounter when you come into a hospital. Now, this list is completely configurable by each hospital, so they can decide who appears in the list and what uniforms they're wearing. So I'm going to go to the radiology tech. And I'm going to tap the radiology tech. It's the same behavior for all of the avatars here. So we get a definition of what that staff role does. And then if I tap the pencil bottom left of the screen, what I can do is I can change the look of the radiology tech avatar so that it looks like the radiology tech that's looking after me. So I'll change some of the parameters here. I'll change the hairstyle. I'm going to take the glasses off, and I'm going to change the eye shape. So there's my radiology tech. And if I tap the other pencil on the screen, I can put their name in. And if I close this now and go back through the list, you'll see that Susie, the radiology tech, has now appeared in the list. And if I've got more than one radiology tech looking after me, I just tap the plus button next to Susie, and I can create and customize another one. And we find that kids very often co-create these avatars with the healthcare professionals that are around them, and that really helps to build relationships. Okay, so I'm going to go up to the menu now. And I'm going to go round to the next section, which is our treatments and diagnostics section. And here we explain complex or scary treatments. I'll show you what we've got in here. This is our master version of the app, so it's all of the content we have. Typically, a hospital would only have the content they've subscribed to, but I'll take you through the list. So we've got a section on IVs, which I'm going to show you in a second. We've got X-rays, mask making, MRI, 3 types of CT scans, so that includes 2 different ways of delivering contrast. We've got various vendors, proton beam therapy equipment. We've got linear accelerators, patient monitors, blood tests, and ultrasound. And we're continually adding to this list. We're currently developing a new section on port access. But I'm going to show you how IVs works. So I'll tap IVs. Now, just before I get into this, what we try and do whenever we create content like this is answer 3 questions for the patient. So the first question is, what's going to happen and what's my role in that process going to be? The second question we try and answer is, what's it going to feel like? And then the third question we try and answer is, are there any coping strategies I can use to help me get through that process? And as I go through this demo here, just bear those 3 questions in mind and you'll see how we're answering them for the child. So you can see here's the scene. There's a couple of things that are glowing orange, and that just means I can tap them to find out more about them. So we've got an IV pole there. We've got a radio there. I'm going to tap the forward arrow. And you can see there in my avatar's hand is an IV. If I tap it, I can see that it's a bendy straw. And then if I close that and tap the forward arrow again, and I'll go on, it's telling me the straw goes inside a vein. In comes a nurse. Now it's giving me a coping strategy. It's telling me I can have someone with me. I can ask as many questions as I want. And now it's telling me I've got superpowers. And those superpowers are staying as still as a statue and breathing deeply. And so the nurse is going to come round and clean the area, and then the first thing we do is take some deep breaths. So now what's going to happen when I tap the forward arrow is we're going to do a little breathing exercise to help relax, and the object here is to breathe in and out in time with the balloon. So if I tap the forward arrow, the idea is to breathe in and out. I won't play this for too long, otherwise we'll all go to sleep, but I'll tap the forward arrow again, and you get the idea. So now we're going to go back to the scene and see an IV being placed. So there's the IV, and you can see there's an arrow above the IV. So I'm going to tap the arrow, and what we have now is the opportunity to see what's going on inside the body. So if I tap me, there we are inside a vein. In comes the IV, delivering whatever the IV is delivering. And now we can see what those things are in the vein. So I'm going to tap from left to right. So on the left-hand side, we've got red blood cells, then white blood cells, then fat cells, and then whatever's coming through the IV. So I'll close that. And this then goes on and tells you more about the process. But for the sake of the demo, I'm going to come out of there and I'm going to go into the next section now, which is our games section. So in all of our games have some kind of educational outcome. So Heart Race helps you understand what bedside patient monitors do. Plasma Patrol is about blood cancers, and is actually the game that if you remember the quote from the parent at the top, this is the game that boy played. So I'm going to show you that in a second. Bendy Bones is about X-rays. Proton Power is about proton beam therapy. We've got a number of other games in development, which I'll just briefly tell you about. The most ambitious of the games in development is a sedation game that we're co-developing with Rainbow Babies and Children's in Cleveland, Ohio. And that game explains every stage of an end-to-end sedation encounter through a series of mini games. So each mini game takes a different stage of that journey and explains what's going to happen. We've also got a series of games around surgery and a game around sleep therapy. All of those should be coming on stream a little bit later this year. But I'm going to show you Plasma Patrol. Now, this is a single player game. Some of the games are multiplayer. If I tap learn more, the objective of the game is to collect platelets, lymphocytes, vitamins, chemotherapy, and iron, to destroy cancer cells, and to avoid white blood cells, fat cells, pathogens, and dead cells. Okay, so I'm going to tap play solo. And here's my avatar running down the hospital corridor. In a second, they're going to jump in a spaceship, and the spaceship's going to take off and land in the bloodstream. And then at that point, the game begins. So, okay. Right, so I'm controlling the rocket with my finger bottom right. Those blue things are white blood cells, so I've got to avoid them if I can. I'm getting these cancer cells. There's some chemotherapy out there, but can I get it? Yes, I've got it, but I got a few white blood cells in the process. So you can see I'm not particularly good at this game, but you get the idea. So if I was 10 years old, I'd be doing really well and on to level 2, but unfortunately I'm not 10 years old. So I'm going to exit the game. Oh, excuse me, and come out of the game section, and I'm going to bypass the home screen. You've seen that already, and I'm going to go into the environment. So out of the box, Xploro comes with a number of generic environments, so things like an OR, a recovery room, and various other rooms. But many of the hospitals we work with also commission bespoke environments. And as this is our master version, I've got all of our environments in here. So I'm just going to run you through the list, and then I'm going to show you one in detail. So the 3 environments that you see on screen at the moment are all for a single hospital in the UK, which is a proton therapy centre. Level 1 and level 2, they are for another hospital in the UK. These 3 environments that you see on screen now, the one on the left is a patient room in Malawi, the one in the middle is a patient room in Ghana, and the one on the right is a treatment room in Ghana. And then we've got various vendors, proton gantries, we've got a recovery room and operating room. Both of those are generic environments. But the environment I'm going to show you is this pre-op environment. So if I tap pre-op, and what I'm going to do, you see the red balloon top right, I'm going to show you this in augmented reality. So I'm going to tap the red balloon. You can see my desk there, and we'll just wait for the balloon to appear and turn green. So here's the pre-op environment on my desk, and I'm navigating around it, not by doing gestures on the screen, but by physically moving the iPad in and out of the model. And I can do things like tap that chair and it'll fall over. If I come around here, I can see there's some patients in the bays there. I'm going to come back here and tap that IV pump. If I tap these curtains, they'll open and close, and then I'll come around here and tap some other things. And you can imagine that being able to play with a hospital environment in this way before entering the environment really helps to reduce anxiety. And this content was actually developed to support the study that OHSU Dornbecker are doing in Portland, Oregon. Yeah, it's hopefully we're going to get some very positive results from that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the menu, and I'm going to skip past my avatar customizer and go up to the calendar. So the way the calendar works is it works in conjunction with our management system, with hospital appointment systems, and with our parent application. If I tap the plus button, as a child, I can add a calendar event too. So let's say I've got a scan coming up. And I'm not going to worry too much about the date and time. I'm just going to save the event down. Okay, so you can see I've added a scan to my calendar, and there's a question mark next to it. Now, this next feature is something that we co-developed with our expert advisory board. If I tap the question mark, I can record how I'm feeling about that upcoming scan. So let's say I'm feeling nervous. And if I tap the tick, I've now got an emoji next to that appointment. Now, we've just signed our first commercial contract with a UK hospital to send that data to Epic. So the idea being that if you see that a child is feeling nervous about an upcoming event, you can then get child life, or play specialists as we call them in the UK, to intervene and go and have a chat with that child. So I'm going to now I'm just going to park on the home screen, and I'm just going to tell you about some features we've got in development. So a couple of features which are just about ready to go live. One is our questionnaires system, which allows you to construct structured questionnaires in our management system and then assign those to one or many patients. And then 2 things happen when the patient receives those questionnaires in the app. The first is that we send their responses to the patient record. And so far we've done that with both Epic and Cerner, but potentially we can do it with any patient record system. But the most important thing from the child's perspective is that they win one of 40 dance animations every time they respond to a questionnaire. And actually you can see Bobby doing one of those dance animations right now. The second feature is we've in our management system, you can now curate video collections. And those videos can be drawn from anywhere. They can be videos that you've created or videos that you've seen on YouTube that you think would be appropriate to the child. And then you can basically curate different collections for different cohorts of patients, and then those patients will see a video icon in the menu, and they can watch those videos in the secure environment of Xploro without being able to navigate away to watch any other video content that you might not want them to see. Another feature which we're developing later this year, which is something very close to my heart, is what we're calling our mini metaverse for families. The mini metaverse for families basically stems from my personal experience. So when my daughter was going through cancer treatment at the age of 13, her brother was 11, and his needs for the course of that year were pretty much ignored because we just didn't have the bandwidth to give him the support he needed. And so I've become really interested in the psychosocial needs of not only siblings, but the whole family. So what we're doing is when we give an access code to a family member, that family member will be able to create instances of Xploro for every member of the family, separate instances. So if you think about when you saw my avatar in augmented reality, you'll be able to see your brothers and sisters, your aunties and uncles' avatars as well, share emojis, share virtual hugs, share short messages. We're also going to share calendars. So that means that you might get a notification saying your brother or sister's got an MRI coming up tomorrow. Do you want to see what's involved in that? So those are some of the features we've got coming up. And I should just say, Katie, Child Life on Call, do you mind me mentioning our planned work together? Give me a thumbs up if you. Yeah. So we've got Katie from Child Life on the call, and Katie runs an amazing company doing for parents what we're trying to do for kids. And so we're talking about finding ways in which we can work together so that we can provide a unified service of Xploro for children and Katie's wonderful app for parents. So I don't know how I'm doing on time, but that's pretty much an overview of the Xploro platform. There's a lot of other features which I haven't had time to show you, but I think hopefully you've got a sense of how it works and what it does. So I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
Sam, I know you had some questions. Do you want to ask, or do you want me to ask from your text?
Oh, I'm happy to speak to them. Thanks, Denise.
Fantastic.
I really appreciated the demo. Thank you, Dom. And was just curious what feedback you've received from providers as well as patients and their families, because I suspect having patients and families feel better supported also positively impacts the folks who care for them. So whatever you could share, that would be of interest.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, the feedback from providers has been great, and I think testament to that is the fact that we're in use in several hospitals in the UK, several hospitals in the United States, a hospital in Spain, and hospitals in Africa. So I think from the provider point of view, there's an added benefit, which is procedural efficiency. So it's not just about less anxious patients, it's about shorter appointment times, it's about greater adherence to medicine regimes, it's about reduction in repeat procedures. So, and we're trying to prove out some of that with some of the research that we're doing at the moment.
That's super cool. Thanks for speaking to that. And of course, we know when we improve efficiency and reduce friction, that also supports provider well-being and the care that they're able to offer. So thank you.
So somebody with iPhone came off mute. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just wondering, what is the revenue model here? Who pays you, or it is still pre-revenue, or where are we with the?
Yeah, so it's not pre-revenue. We're at market. The revenue model is a software as a service model, annual subscription paid for by the provider.
So hospitals are paying you right now?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And do you think that is there any role of this application in outpatient ward and pediatric setting, or any pediatric specialist practice settings?
So at the moment, all our customers are hospitals. We're just in the process of signing a contract with a payer, and we're very interested in looking at opportunities to prove Xploro in both an outpatient and a primary care setting. But we haven't actually done that yet.
Yeah, no, and no, thank you very much. I missed a little bit of the initial part. So what is the workflow like? So this is the software cloud-based gaming application?
Yeah, so it sits on the patient's own device. It's downloaded from the App Store, whether that's Google Play or the Apple App Store. You can only gain access to it with a unique access code, though, that is provided by the provider.
By the hospital, okay. And what is the minimum age where the cutoff age for the pediatric, those who can play on this application? What do you think? What is the lowest age?
Yeah, so you probably missed at the top of the presentation. I was saying we've got a research study going on in Spain at the moment with 3 cohorts of children: 3 to 6-year-olds, 7 to 12-year-olds, and 13 to 18-year-olds. Our core target is 7 to 14-year-olds, but we've got good data showing applicability in both younger and older kids.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I missed that initial part. No,
No problem.
no, that's great. No, that's great. And no, that's cool. Are you doing anything on pediatric, obesity or other lifestyle modification stuff?
Well, it's funny you should say that. We had a funding proposal with Innovate UK, which is the British government's innovation arm, for a big project around childhood obesity, which we were planning to do in conjunction with the biggest children's hospital here. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful, but we have plans around it, so long as we can find funding to develop the content.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm Dr. Jan here, by the way. I'm a pediatric cardiologist based here in Arizona. I was just wondering. So these are some ideas floating around. I'm also an entrepreneur and innovator. But yeah, no, that's cool. So I don't know how I can get your information, so we can maybe touch base offline or later.
Absolutely, Denise. Are you able to facilitate that?
I can indeed. That information will be all sent in the email that follows this presentation, as well as the link to this recording.
Right.
Dr. Jan, if you also look at your private message that I sent you some of.
Perfect.
Sounds good. I'll have a look on the LinkedIn. Yeah, sounds good.
Great, fantastic.
Great, Dom. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dom. Amazing presentation. Would love to hear in terms of kind of future plans and goals. Where do you see Xploro going in, say, like 5, 10 years and beyond?
Right. So our long-term goal, which is probably unachievable, but our long-term goal is to be a patient education platform for any patient, any condition, anywhere in the world. Now that is a massive task. So 5, 10 years, 15, 20 years, we're probably never going to be able to cover every patient, every condition, everywhere in the world. But that's what we're aiming for. So we started with children with cancer. We're already branching out. So Angela, as you know very well, we're working in the radiology departments in various hospitals, and those aren't just cancer patients; those are any patient. And we're developing content for kids undergoing surgery. We're planning to do diabetes and asthma at some point in the next year. So long-term goal is to branch out and treat and provide content around a lot of different conditions, and then look at an adult market or an adult audience, which we'll start to do next year.
Amazing. Thank you.
And the adult audience, Dom, that will use the same technology, so it'll be the similar type of avatars?
Well, so coming back to my slides at the beginning where I said we use a human-centered design approach, the very first thing we're going to do is ask adults what they would want to see, and then the solution will be based on what adults tell us they want to see. My hunch as an adult myself is that we might need to change the UI to some extent. I'm sorry for anyone that doesn't know UI, user interface, but we'll wait and see what the adults say before we presuppose what it's going to be like.
Well, and to that point, adults of different generations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So our plan is to start with, we've actually got a project starting in the late spring of this year, looking at adolescents and young adults in a mental health setting. And then we'll look at other cohorts of adults as we go on and see how much we need to change the platform for them.
I just wanted to speak a little bit to one of my favorite parts of Xploro, and I think that's, we can talk about, I'm Katie, by the way, I'm a child life specialist, how it's really beneficial when you're in the hospital, but sometimes the processing happens when you're out of the hospital and everything is so overwhelming while you're there. And I think that families can take this home and play it 2-3 weeks later. I was just talking with a bunch of parents this couple of days ago, and they said that in between hospitalizations is really when you can process what's happened, but also prepare for what's next. And I love that Xploro just stays with you once you get it. I think it's fabulous.
I love that. So, Katie, how long has your organization been using Xploro?
So I'm a child life specialist. I have seen and worked with Dom probably over the past 1.5 years. We've been chit-chatting, but I've been able to talk to other child life specialists who are using it in their facility. I'm in my own practice right now.
I see.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Hi, Dom. I'm wondering, have you included, so my name's Kelsey. I'm an occupational therapist by background. And I'm wondering, have you included children with different like developmental disabilities in sort of some of these studies? Specifically, I'm thinking about the kiddos with autism or Down syndrome that I used to see that would have, or a lot of them had leukemia that I saw in the hospital. So curious how that has been.
So our expert advisory board is a very diverse group of children. We have one child who has a severe autism diagnosis. He gives us amazing information, telling us things like we need to think about what the rooms smell like, or we need to think about what the colours in the room are. A number of kids in the expert advisory board have been through cancer treatment. So I mean, obviously it's a relatively small group, so we can't cover every person, but we fully encourage as much diversity as possible, and seek out opinions from everyone wherever they may be.
Awesome, thank you. I love to hear it. I think that diversity piece is so key to developing something that's holistic, which is really nice.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think hopefully this came across in the presentation, but diversity is really at the heart of the way we've developed it. So even from you think very few avatar-based systems start from a neutral position. They usually start from a white avatar, and ours is very conscientiously a neutral position, and genderless as well.
Well, and I love that you showed you can even change the eyes, and so really give some characteristics that are very unique to an individual.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious, Dom, one of the things that I'm very interested in when we think about the treatment of a patient with cancer is in the hospital or in those treatment rooms is not the only place that they're receiving care. They have many other visits. Is all of that able to be integrated within so that if they're going to see their primary care physician or other visits that they may have, it's integrated and those care teams can also see that integration?
So what do you mean exactly, Denise, in terms of, can you give me a kind of use case so that I can?
Yeah, so I'm thinking, especially a younger child is often going into their pediatrician just for a standard treatment, or maybe they have a non-cancer issue that they're getting treated for. So they see their primary care physician. But then they also have their ongoing cancer treatment and therapies. And I'm wondering if there's a way, here it feels so often that those are very separated visits and not connected. So there's a lack of awareness between the different care teams. So I'm wondering if this solution has the ability to help bridge those gaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does, and we, we as yet we don't have many out of hospital experiences. So most of the content is geared around an in hospital experience, but absolutely we can cater for primary care visits, that kind of stuff. What we can also do in our management system is turn content on and off for the patient at different stages of the journey. So if you think about, say, a pre-diagnosis child, the very last thing you want to show them is cancer-related content. But you might well want to show them what an MRI looks like, because that could be part of the diagnostic process. And so you can basically, within our management system or within our parent app, the parent can do this as well. You can turn content on and off. So it could be that you've turned on the MRI content, but you haven't yet turned on anything relating to cancer.
Excellent.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. Thank you so much. When I was looking at the treatment avatars, so the RadTech and others, can the child name them as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the child names them, and they can either give them a stupid name or they can give them the real name of the person that's looking after them.
Okay, so in that area, it can do the free text.
Yes, yeah, absolutely can do the free text. Yeah. So there is a danger that they might name those avatars after all their best friends and themselves, for example, which would potentially reveal personally identifiable information. But the reason that's not as dangerous as naming your avatar with free text is that that information doesn't go outside of the child's iPad, whereas the avatar name is used in multiplayer gaming. So another person on another iPad or another phone might be able to see that name. And that's not true of the staff avatars.
Okay. So in the games, other child patients could be in there with this child?
Yes, absolutely. But you only see their avatar name. So you see Bobby Poppycock rather than Dom Rayburn in the game.
Okay. And can they have conversations? Okay.
No. And the reason for that is just child safety and the cost of moderation would be prohibited.
Okay.
One of the things, when I was talking about the mini metaverse for families, one of the reasons why we can enable messaging between avatars is because we've got a secure family unit, which is an access to that that mini metaverse for families is controlled by a family member. So we can do much more once we've got essentially the family member moderating who's accessing Xploro.
And I'll just keep asking questions. So if other people have questions, please interrupt me. But I'm just so intrigued. And Dom, I know when you and I first spoke, you spoke about the desire for this to have a long-term influence on that individual's health, meaning that it actually affects their adult health and well-being. Now that's going to be a few years away in regards to being able to study and collect data. What types of things are you considering now in that process of being able to see an influence or an effect in the adult version of these early users?
Yeah, so I mean that would be a very expensive longitudinal study to prove that out. I mean, we're relying on pre-existing research that suggests that patients who are better informed about their healthcare at a young age are then better able to self-manage their healthcare at an older age, and so we don't have any research ourselves that can support that argument. We're just looking at the existing research.
I'll try to be quiet and let somebody else ask. Well, we have about 7 minutes before the top of the hour, and at which point we'll transition to speed networking. Dom, with 7 minutes, is there anything else that you would have liked to have shared with us in the application?
So that's a good question. So I think it's one of the things that I talked about where we want to go in the long term. So one of the things that we're always looking for is subject matter experts who can help us develop that content, because we need input from physicians, healthcare professionals, who can give us their expertise so that we can ensure that the content we're delivering is accurate. And actually, that the IV experience that I showed you, that came about through a very close collaboration with a child life specialist who was particularly experienced in talking to children about IVs. So it was actually a collaboration between the child life specialist and our expert advisory board. So there was in the copy there was something saying about the IV can feel a bit cold when it goes in. I don't know if anyone noticed that. So that was one of our kids who'd had lots of IVs saying, you should say it feels cold. So I think it's really important to realize that when I demo Xploro, I'm demoing a product that is the result of a collaboration between our development team, healthcare professionals who've given us their expertise, and our expert advisors who've shared their expertise as well. And the thing about our expert advisors is roughly half the group are experts in the sense that they've been in and out of hospital all their lives, and the other half of the group represent those kids that will have all the fears of coming into hospital for the first time because they've never had anything seriously wrong with them. So we've got a really good broad range of opinions there.
When you did the demonstration of the avatar looking around that one procedural room, now for me, I get car sick very easily, so some of that movement was disorienting for me. Are you finding any challenges with that, or how do you solve for that?
No, so I mean that kind of dizziness, disorientation is very commonly experienced in VR, and the reason is that one of the reasons why you experience that kind of motion sickness in VR is that the motion has been programmed by someone else, and it doesn't necessarily correlate with the way that your body is moving. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason you felt slightly motion sick watching me do that is because I was controlling the movement. You weren't controlling the movement. But if you think about the way a child interacts with Xploro on their own device, the iPad is following their gaze, so there's no danger of motion sickness there. It's just because, as a bystander, you were watching me you were watching me watching the environment, and that created that disconnect
between makes sense.
What you were seeing and what you were feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense. If I'm driving the car, no car sickness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It's also quite a bit more responsive when you're actually holding the tablet rather than streaming it through a Zoom call where it gets a little bit jerky. I think, it's a very smooth experience. Just, of course, I'm probably biased, but I think you should try it for yourself at some point.
Well, we've got 3 minutes. Dom, you've got other members of your team on here. So I wonder if we just do a quick introduction, and then I'm hopeful that your team will stay with us for this speed networking, and we'll break you out in with some of the others who have joined us.
Yeah, great. So, Stefan, as you were just speaking, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Stefan Agamanolis. I am Chief Strategy Officer for Xploro, and I just joined within the last couple of months. Immediately prior to this, I was at Akron Children's Hospital for about 12 and a half years in a few different roles. One of the roles I had for about 5 years was Director Patient Experience. And under that umbrella, I had a connection to the Child Life team within Akron Children's. And then more recently, I was doing innovation and commercialization work for the hospital. So maybe that's enough of an introduction for now.
Great, thanks, Stefan. And we've got Bryony and Cal as well. So whichever one of you would like to go first.
Bryony, please.
I was quite surprised, Cal. You're always quicker than me. Hi, everyone. I'm Bryony Price. I am the Customer Success Manager at Xploro. So I look after all of our customers, make sure they've got everything they need, and see if there's anything we can do to help. Cal?
Thanks, Bryony. Cal?
Perfect. So I'm Growth Manager. I'm Kel, Growth Manager here at Xploro, calling in from Madrid, Spain. So I've been a part of the team for about 1.5 years now. So I help Xploro with a little bit of sales here, a little bit of marketing there, and similar to Bryony, I also act as the main contact for some of our hospitals. Yeah, that's about it.
So Kelvin, are you working closely with the group in Spain there, doing that research with the 3 different groups?
Yeah. That's one of the hospitals that I manage, and
yeah,
it's been absolutely fun.
Yes. So Kelly's our
We're nearing the end of that trial too.
Kelly's the only one of our team who's fluent in Spanish. I'm learning at the moment, but Kel's fluent.
I see.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for inviting us, Denise.
Thank you, Dom. Yeah, I'm really excited with the group that was here. I think they were very engaged, and then getting this recording and the information out to the full participant, that group that registered. I think that there'll be others who also wanted to be and just couldn't make their calendars align. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. I'd love to stay connected to kind of see what you're doing and how you're doing it, because it's really awesome.
Yeah, please do. Feel free to link in or whatever. And if you ever want a full demo of Xploro, just get in touch.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.